All right, guys, welcome to the Investor's Guide of Memphis Real Estate. As always, I'm your host, Dean Harris, and I'm with Douglas Skipworth. How are you?
Hey, man, doing great.
We're bringing you this podcast to give you the boots on the ground knowledge to be a successful real estate investor here in Memphis, Tennessee. Please like and subscribe to the Investor's Guide of Memphis Real Estate on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, wherever you listen to your podcast. Apple Music is one of them. Show sponsors are listed on the screen below. We've got CrestCore Property Management, Corlin Financial, Triumph Construction, Will Griffin with Griffin, Clift, Everton, and Mashmeyer, and Local Title. We could not do our podcast here and could not run our businesses without those guys, so please like and subscribe to them. I help buyers and sellers every day. Dean at CrestCore.com. If you have any questions about anything house related here in Memphis, Dean at CrestCore.com. I help you with that. I'm going to start answering questions.
Okay.
I'm going to start answering questions live on the air. If you have any question that you want to send in, comment on any of our social media platforms, YouTube, Spotify. Spotify actually will ask you a question about the podcast if you enjoyed it or what you liked about it. Please leave your questions there. Next week, I'm going to answer them live on the air. Okay. So please leave your questions. I'm happy to help you. I want to start opening this up a little bit more. Any of our social media, we monitor those. So if you want to comment on any of those. Last week, we talked about Mr. Elon Musk bringing his AXI, is that
XAI.
right? XAI, artificial intelligence to Memphis and his big supercomputers. We're excited about that. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about why it's still a good time to invest. To invest in Memphis. We wanted to piggyback a little bit on what we spoke about with Elon and talk about today why people still invest in Memphis. And if you're an every week listener to the podcast, you've heard us talk about this before. You've heard us say, why is it good to invest here? I actually think the reason why adjusts and changes frequently. I think there's more things to add to it of reasons why we like to invest here. So I think to me, it's worthy of a frequent podcast topic. Good. So we're going to talk about today. Memphis has not suffered any real price drop or rental rate decrease during this inflation hike that we've all been going through. I personally have not seen prices just bottom out or even really dip much at all. We're coming up, by the way, in August, we're going to do the zip code breakdown again. I cannot believe it's that time of year again. But we're getting ready to talk about that next month. So you're going to see the numbers. I already pretty much know where they're at. We have not seen a dramatic decrease in any pricing valuation or rental amount. Now, if you're a local trying to buy a home, that's not always the greatest news. If you're an investor that's coming in and you're trying to invest, this is superior news. This is awesome that during a tough time, in my mind, the city of Memphis has been like Teflon, right? We're going through an inflation hike right now that in most cases would just literally bottom people out. It's not happening. In 2020 and 21, we went through COVID that, man, in some cases would have really bottomed out businesses and people. That didn't happen. It got stronger. In 2008, we saw the Great Depression and a whole economy crash, and you thought, man, there might be nothing left of that. That didn't stop investors, and that didn't stop people that were renting homes out. So Memphis to me has, weathered some massive storms. And not only are we still a great place to invest in, I think we're one of the top and one of the best because of some of the jobs that we talked about last week, some of the companies and some of the things that we spoke about. But I just, my point to start the podcast was to bring up the fact that we have not seen massive drops in pricing or market rent. And from an investor who is massively invested into the city, that's important.
Very important. I think, to kind of play the nerdy side of like the supply and demand economics equation. I mean, the supply isn't there, and the demand is still there. So, I mean, in the sense of it's still in an equilibrium of sense where there's enough that it's not like it was when we had so much inventory. The supply was so much that then the demand wasn't, that the prices had to come down and people just bought. And so it's just changed. And so now it's a little bit more imbalanced so that the values are staying high.
That's right.
Where they got to kind of in that. And I think from a rent perspective, we talked about this for many, many times, and rent's just a function of income.
That's right. Explain that.
Right. It's just a function of income. So it's like, I'm just pull out a number. Let's say $25 an hour. So if the typical tenant makes $25 an hour, that's about $50,000 a year. Okay, and so you're like, okay, $50,000 a year, call it 48, divide it by 12, that's $4,000 a month. Okay, so $4,000 a month and bringing home income. Well, the rule of thumb is what? 25 to 50%, just depending on who you are and what your situation. A third. So, call it 25%. That's $1,000.
That you can explain that you can pay in rent, or what they say you're supposed to pay.
A 25%, call it a third, whatever, or more of your rent, of your monthly income, you'll pay in housing expense. Mm-hmm. So if you're paying, if you're making $4,000, you're paying $1,000 minimum in rent. Mm-hmm. And so as that dollar per hour has creeped up over time, the rent has creeped up over time. And people are always, in my experience, been doing it since 2000.
Yeah.
People are all, really since 96, when I've really been in housing and have seen people always stretch to, as their income increases, most people stretch to afford what their income then allows them to afford.
That's right. If they know they can pay it and the bankers
25% or third, whatever. So so rents just keep increasing. So all that to say, nobody's taking a wage hit. Right? So wages it wasn't like you were making $25 an hour 2 years ago and now you're making $7.
No.
No. It's like you're making $25 a couple of years ago and now there's inflation. Now you're making $30 an hour. Mm-hmm. And so rents are continuing to price up.
Yes.
They're not going down.
No. They're going to, and the rate is not going down. So we're not seeing any kind of no.
And it goes back and it reminds me of that young guy you talked to a year or two ago who said, man, I'm looking at this 10 years from now. Because are people going to be making $25 an hour 10 years from now? No. The person who's making $25 an hour now is not going to be making $25 an hour.
I think that's a relative story. I'll just tell it real quick. Yeah. Young guy from New York on the stockbroker, made a ton of money, moved to Nashville, called me and said, hey man, I want to buy $200,000 to $250,000 houses that rent for $1,800 and $1,900 to $2,200. I thought, man, you got a lot of cash on hand. Why are you buying that product? This was 2 years ago, right? A year and a half ago. Why are you buying that product? Well, Dean, are you in this for the long haul? I mean, this kid was 10 years younger than me. I was like, well, yeah. He goes, me too. He goes, what do you think is going to happen in 10 years? And I just wasn't following his. He's like, well, if you get 30% raise increase in your valuation and in your rent, which is what happens over a 10-year period every year, look at the history. He goes, I can show you all the data. He goes, my $1,800 rental is going to be about just under $2,200 in 10 years. My value is going to go from $230 to $260, $275, and then in 10 more years, it's just going to keep going. He goes, now I got a heck of a deal, and everybody else is buying the same house for $400,000 that I bought for $220. Now they're all, you know what I mean? He's like, now if I can just weather this storm for 5 or 6 years, which is not making any money from it, which, okay, not everyone can do that. They need to earn the income from it. This guy didn't. So he's going to weather the storm, and in 10 years, he'll be in a better position, and in 15, even better, and it just keeps getting better.
Keeps getting better.
So I hadn't looked at rentals like that. But if he's planning out for the future and he's literally looking at inflation or with rent numbers and appreciation with your valuation, you're going to go up 30% every 10 years. It won't be 3% every year, but every 10 years it has averaged, and he showed me the data where it's gone up 28 to 31 and 32% every 10 years. So you got to have a long distance thought process to be able to swallow that. But if you're building a rental portfolio here, that has to be your thought process.
And I was just gonna say, you took that example personally.
I did it last year.
Yeah.
I bought more houses at 9% last year than I ever should have bought. Ever.
That you ever should have bought if you were going to hold them for a year.
If I was going to hold them for a year. But
these are long term. 25 years.
I will never, and most of those houses were between 80 and 90 grand that needed 20 and 30 worth of work, right? Those houses now are going for 100 and 110, even just a year later. So if you can't tell me I didn't make the right decision. I'm not making any money from it now. I'm paying more to hold those right now because I'm just watching the interest rate. As soon as that thing ticks a little bit below 7, I'm going to refi everything, right? Even though I have some in lower rates and I have some more in higher rates, I'm going to refi everything and get on that 6.5 or whatever it's going to be, and all will be good. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm preaching. It's like, plan out. I don't, we're veering off a little bit here, but plan out with what you're doing, because you're not planning for 24 months. We're planning for 10 and 15 and 20, and I'm actually planning for my kids. So I'm not selling anything. So 50 years I'm planning for. What do you think these houses are going to be looked at in 40 and 50 years, right? So anyway, another reason why staying steady in Memphis and coming into our market is a good one. Our job market continues to grow. Yeah. Right. We've got more and more jobs that are coming to Memphis.
That show last week was awesome.
Man, you want to talk about what Elon Musk is doing with the supercomputer. Will that bring specific jobs? We talked about it. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
But the idea that one of the wealthiest men in the world is coming to put a massive piece of his business into Memphis should tell everybody something, right? Even if you're not an Elon fan, the fact that he's coming in with all of these opportunities, and people follow the leader. Yeah. So there's going to be other businesses and other people come here. They might have tons of jobs. I mean, we talked about, Blue Oval, FedEx, International Paper, AutoZone, Amazon, Nike, all the people that are here already with tons of jobs. Elon's coming. I guarantee you more are going to be following it. So our job opportunities here in Memphis are continuing to grow. We don't even, in all these companies we just mentioned, we didn't even mention the logistical trucking companies. We didn't even.
That's why all those companies are here.
That's why all those companies are here, because Amazon sends out 8 trillion packages a day or whatever their number crazy is. FedEx. All of these people are you mentioned it, the sub companies and the jobs and the growth that have to support Blue Oval and FedEx and all of that is kind of where we're at.
And it's the stuff that people don't know, and we are out here to teach and preach of like Memphis. It's got the river. It's got an unbelievable airport that's second in the world to Hong Kong.
Redeveloping it too.
And always redeveloping it. They've got all the interstates that run through here, and road, rails, and then they got the railroads. They got 5 intermodal. Where are these big trucks? 5 of them, man. It's like only Chicago and L.A. and New York or someplace have these. What Memphis has, transportation-wise, which is all. Again, all of this means companies here that create jobs, so renters of all stripes, of all walks of life, whether you're working the minimum wage job or whether you're an executive and you're just working here for a little while and you're renting, all of those renters have steady income.
That's right.
That's the name of the game with rental real estate. It's passive, steady income. And so you want renters who are going to pay your rent and are going to take care of your property and have got good jobs. And that's what Memphis offers.
That's right. As long as you stay in the right rental range, you're 900,000 and up, I think you're going to be great.
I'm 900 to 1,000.
That's right. I'm also finding 80 to 85% of all of my current tenants are renewing their lease. I am not having tenants leave. I'm over 90%
for sure
that are staying.
Oh yeah.
They don't want to move. They're locked in. I take care. You take care of the houses. So I am finding that most of my tenants, if you do them right, if you take care of a tenant, and I don't mean over the top. I mean fix it if it's broken, provide safe, housing, clean, all good areas where people want to be. They're renewing.
Yeah, people don't want to move every month. I mean, every year.
No, and I don't I take a rent increase every single year? In some cases, when the market rent is there, we'll take a rent increase. I will admit, though, in this last year of all my turnovers, probably half the time I didn't. Yeah. Because over the last 24 and 36 months, we had most investors have adjusted their market rent to be right at market rent. If I'm $150 or $200 below market rent, I've got to change that.
Yeah, right.
If I'm $50 below market rent and I have a tenant that pays and they want to stay, congratulations, you're staying. Thanks for being a good tenant, and let's don't increase this rent. So there's my point to bringing that up, tenants, if you're taking care of them and in your good areas and the housing is safe, they are renewing their lease.
Yes.
Another positive for Memphis.
Absolutely. And that has been my experience. By the way, that's been my experience the whole time I've done this. Investing. So that's not new. If you take care of people, because a lot of people don't want to move, and they're either they're renting for a season and they just want to stay in that place for that time, and the better you treat them, the longer they'll stay until their situation changes and they need to go make a move, and we're like, hey, that's great. And then you put the next person in. And again, you've got Memphis that has, it's not a headline.
Yeah.
Memphis is steady and stable.
Like
Jobs in Memphis are really good. Nobody cares. hey man, somebody got shot. Oh, now they care.
Yeah. Well, and that might be that the headline of Memphis. What you just said. It's like that could be the headline, not the get shot part, but the other one. You know. I just think there's so much going on here that if you take a deep dive into Memphis from an investor lens, you're seeing more and more positive things happen here than in many, many, many other cities. If you look at it from a different lens, you might see something else. But if you come through an single family home investor lens, you have to be pleased with what you see here. You have to, because I've done research in other markets. We have colleagues that are selling houses in other markets, right? This is a fantastic place.
Go ahead.
For wholesaling real estate, which is grassroots, the belly kind of real estate. We have a colleague who sells in several different cities, and Memphis is flat out the best one.
For sure.
Because people want to invest here still.
I said it. It's like, I think Memphis is like the Silicon Valley of real estate investing.
Yeah.
Because it has got the, what do you mean by that? It's like, it's got the infrastructure. Like Silicon Valley's got the infrastructure. All the big tech companies are there. Why? Because all the people are there, all the
smart people,
the schools, the money, the venture capital, the lawyers, the whatever to build their companies. Well, that's the same thing for Memphis as far as rental real estate goes.
Yeah.
We've got the infrastructure here, and people come.
Title companies that are used to dealing with out-of-state companies, property management here at CrestCore that's used to dealing with out-of-state clients, set up that way. Yep. Everybody, Triumph Construction, Will Griffin, local, everybody hard money lending. Corlin Financial is so used to working with out-of-state clients. This is your bird's nest. This is exactly where you ought to be. Not obligated to use any of these folks. We talk about that, but we provide everybody and everything for you. I mean, it's a playbook.
And it's just like, the only reason we get on here and say this, I would say it for many, many reasons, but it's like, because that's just what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You just said it about 50. You're thinking about 50 years for your kids. I mean, you and I've talked about this, about what my family and what we're doing, the different things with getting it set up and excited. And it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Like this is what we're doing. I get more excited about this for me than I do for you, the listener. Right. I'm like, man, I got to go get after this, buy more houses, pay them down, pay them off, just do everything that I've ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
I always get more excited talking to you about wanting to go out and do it, man. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I enjoy getting this kind of information to you guys. It is the reasons why we are personally investing here. This isn't any kind of artificial words we're giving you here. These are the reasons why I invest here. These companies, these blue collar workers, this town, this is why I invest here, and I thought we ought to share it.
Yeah, amen.
Appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week. If you have any questions, dean@crestcore.com. If you also have questions that you want to leave on our social media platforms, any of them, Spotify, YouTube, post a question on there. We're going to have people watching it. I will answer those questions live on the air next week. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.